Hey everybody, we're waiting on the NFL conference call to start, which should be any minute now. It's 3:44, supposed to start at 3:45, according to the email, even though it says 3:30. And once it starts, I got to get everything lined up. So I got to be aware and present, as it were. So it says launch meeting, so I'm pressing launch meeting, and I'm waiting. It says scheduled 3:30. Please wait, the webinar will begin.
Recording in progress.
And we're off. So
We'll get going momentarily. Please stand by.
Thank you. Zoom webinar. Yeah, there we go, folks. Okay. We're ready. So, folks, at Zenny, NFL News by Zenny62.com, first post is the entire agenda for this meeting and the live stream too. So you can make sure that you're all set, right? Let me see if this is coming up. Well, let's see, get that just. Videos.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. It's Brian McCarthy in New York. We look forward to seeing many of you next week in Palm Beach and want to spend some time today previewing the meeting with a focus on competition and health and safety matters. You should have received earlier today the competition committee proposals and last week the club proposals. We'll hear today from Jeff Miller, Troy Vincent, and Rich McKay in his role as co-chairman of the competition committee. Following the brief remarks, we will take some questions using the raised hand function at the bottom of your screen. We'd ask that you put the raised hand function on and then also take yourself off of mute when you're called upon. This session is on the record and you may post in real time. We'll email you a recording of the session following its completion. Before we get to Jeff, Troy, and Rich, Mike Signora has a couple items. Mike?
Thanks, Brian. So just a few things for all of you. There will be a media workroom located at the Breakers in the media pavilion off the main drive at the Breakers. That will open on Sunday at 11 a.m. We will have an NFL reception on Monday night at 7 p.m. That's going to be at the Breakers main pool, and all credentialed media are invited to attend. We just want to remind you that this is a social event and it's not a photo or interview opportunity, so please do keep that in mind. We have media availability with the AFC head coaches on Monday from 7:45 to 8:15 a.m. Eastern, and then the NFC head coaches are Tuesday morning from 7:45 to 8:15 a.m. Both of those sessions are in the media pavilion, which is adjacent to the media workroom. And we would ask you to please arrive early so that you can get yourself in through security and set up in advance of that start time. The media credential pickup hours are going to begin on Sunday at 11 a.m. And then Monday and Tuesday, they are at 6:30 a.m. Eastern both days. So we will be there bright and early for all of you. Look forward to seeing you in Palm Beach. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff Miller.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Sig. Good afternoon, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you next week in Florida for the annual meeting. Before I turn it over to Troy and to Rich to talk about the competition committee rules proposals, one I'd like to highlight, and then I'll share a little bit more about the rest of the meeting and some of the prime topics that we're going to be talking about at the league. The one topic, it wouldn't surprise anybody, is around the kickoff. This was the first year of the dynamic kickoff, and one of the topics the competition committee discussed, certainly, and that we'll discuss with coaches and GMs and owners next week, was the successes of it. We saw 332 more kicks returned. We saw more touchdowns, more long or dynamic returns on the play, and yet saw fewer injuries over the course of those more plays this season. As you recall, the previous kickoff had about twice the number of injuries as a regular play from scrimmage or run or pass play, and depending on the year, up to 4 times the rate of concussion. So it was really something that we wanted to focus on and did focus on with the coaches in anticipation of the rule change this year. I know Rich and Troy can speak more to that about what the competition committee is going to be proposing, but obviously it's something that we've spent a great deal of time on. As it relates to the rest of the meeting, I'll give you a few of the key topics. We're going to be talking about our media strategy, certainly in an evolving media landscape. We're lucky to be joined by the CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, and the CEO of Verizon, Hans Vestberg, to talk about the media outlook and their perspectives. We'll certainly spend a lot of time on international, playing 7 games next year, the most that we've played, and the growth of the NFL into other global markets will be a key topic. We're going to have a fair amount of time spent on flag football and the growth of flag, especially women's flag. And to talk about that and the experience and the growth of women's sports, we're going to have a great group of visitors, including Caitlin Clark, Serena Williams, Eli Manning, and a panel that's going to be moderated and participated in by Melody Hobson, who's a part owner of the Broncos, as many of you know, and who's heavily invested in this space. So they'll be talking about women's sports, the growth of flag and professional flag as we look to the future, and the incredible excitement that is around flag football. Lastly, we'll talk about the strength of the game, certainly on full display throughout these last few weeks, as clubs have made an unprecedented commitment to player compensation. As of yesterday, NFL teams have contracted for a record $7.85 billion in player contracts, a lot of that guaranteed at signing. So I think it's a sign of the health of the league and the CBA, as obviously the players are doing well and the league is doing well, which is what the point of the CBA is in the first place. So a lot of topics, as always, a really busy time for the league coaches and GMs as we get together in Florida and talk about some of these and many other topics. That's just a few of the highlights. But to get to the main attraction, let me turn it over to Troy Vincent and to Rich McKay.
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you all for joining us, taking time out of your schedule this afternoon. I'll try to briefly just run through just how we got here. Each of you all had an opportunity to see, like the club, some of the committees, playing rule proposals, bylaws, and resolutions that Rich will cover. I just wanted to give some context. One, I think this is always a wonderful time to just acknowledge how we got here and who we got here with. Starting off in particular, and I don't think Dr. Seals is with us today, nor Dr. York, but the work that they've done with the Health and Safety Committee with Jeff Miller and Dawn Aponte, Mike Lopez from our office, from a data and analytics standpoint, and then the Players Association and the NFLRA, all have been extremely instrumental working with the coaches subcommittee. This is during the season, postseason, 4 days after Super Bowl concludes. We're on calls with the coaches subcommittee, the GMAC, the General Managers Advisory Committee, the Future of Football Health and Safety. And I want to acknowledge if there was 3 occasions during the regular season where Rich, myself, and Stephen Jones, we had an opportunity, as we were just thinking about replays and things that we were learning here in AMGC. Myself personally, along with Perry Fuel, Mark Butterworth, and Ramon and Coach Stewart, just how do we get better? And we were working with Bill Polian, was very instrumental. Some former competition committee members, Coach Cower, I just want to thank him. Coach Ron Rivera, Rick Spellman, Rick Smith, and both Peyton and Eli. They were very instrumental as we were just thinking through, where does replay go in the future? Should there be a flag on the field? Should there not? A lot of history there. So I just wanted to acknowledge them. And Ronnie Lott, Curtis Martin from our Player Advisory Committee, always keeping us honest, as Coach Madden would say, keep the game, the purity of the game, the purity of the game. And they have guided us throughout this entire process. So I just wanted to thank everybody that may not be here, but have been tremendous contributors to how the committee and where we kind of landed from a football operation standpoint with some of our positions and also some of our discussions. As we concluded last week in Fort Lauderdale, the competition committee, there were multiple topics that we covered. Obviously, all didn't show up in either a playing rule proposal form or it might have been a position in the back of the book. But I just want to acknowledge, because these topics came up for many of you all throughout the duration of the season, illegal formations. We talked a lot about pre-snap penalties.
Right.
Illegal formation was one that we discussed. How do we want to officiate that? How do we want to teach that? The overtime, which is obviously a club playing rule proposal, hits on defenseless receivers, and tackling techniques. We think there might the membership to consider on hits on defenseless receivers. We may have a way of assisting officiating in that. There's been a lot of discussions around the QB actions on the sideline, and how do we want to officiate that? How do we want to coach that? Back-to-back timeouts was a point of discussion, and how we want to communicate that, handle that. Sportsmanship, critical topic. One where we just saw during the duration of the season, not where we want to be professionally. Someone as a former player now seeing some of the things, and as players, you kind of know when you cross the line, just some of the things that we saw, that we just want to just make sure that the game's always been about sportsmanship. We saw a couple action like violent gestures up significantly, taunting up significantly. In other areas, we were really, really down on some of just the on-field, as we would call penalty count as pertains like defensive players. Really did a nice job there, down significantly on use of helmet. But the sportsmanship, something I think we all agree, Players Association, coaches, we just want to make sure that everyone is respecting one another as they go out for battle. Opportunities to improve and replay assists. Rich will cover those in some of the playing rule proposals. The special teams working group. Coach Fossil, Coach Hightower, Coach Rizzi, Coach Vrabel was back. He was joining us, very instrumental. And he understands what we're trying to get done. But that coaching working special teams working group was over the last 3 to 4 years have been really instrumental in how they guide and working with the health and safety team. Illegal contact was something. How do we get better in officiating and calling that, being more consistent? The block in the back, the tush push, that low block, split flow block, that block inside that tight end box was something that we covered. Contact on long snappers, that was something that the Players Association raised in Indy. We discussed that, making sure we're protecting not only the long snapper, but the center himself. Virtual measurements, that is something with the future of football committee, with Prague and John Spanos. Just how do we continue to integrate appropriately technology into the game of football on Sunday, Mondays, and Thursdays. Then we kind of concluded with some of the points of clarification of holding, what's the tolerance level there, DPI, OPI. But those were all of the topics that we covered, watching extensive amount of video during that time period on each of these topics. And some came to fruition by either club playing rule proposal or just a few competition committee proposals. So I just wanted to give you context of just that process, who was involved, and just how we came to some conclusions of where we hope that the membership will consider either voting something in or staying away from in the coming week. So I'll pause there and turn it over to Chairman.
Thank you, Troy. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you did and all the NFL office did in supporting us. So I'll start a little bit on the game and the good parts of the game, right? So 105th season, it was another really competitive year. We had 4 new playoff teams. I think that is, if I look right, that's 35 years in a row. We've had 4 new playoff teams. 3 of those 4 were worst to first. They were last in their division the year before, made it to first. Competitive balance means a lot to us, and that's how we set up our schedule. That's how we set up our rules, and that's how we want to operate, and that's what those numbers reflect, which is a good thing.
I think statistically, couple of things to note, right? So plays per game at 151 is a good number for us. It's not a great number. It's a good number. It's within the average of where we've kind of lived on plays per game. Points per game were up to 45.8, 45.82, which is actually above average for us and really at a good level for us. I have to believe that the kickoff and therefore the drive start number impacted that for sure, but it's a good number for us. Margin of victory remained at 11.2, really good for us. That's an historical kind of average for us. We like 11. We'd love to be in the 10s. We don't want to be in the 13s or 14s, but that's a pretty good number for us. So the game statistically is in a pretty good place, and I think when you meet with the coaches subcommittee, the GM subcommittee, look at the statistics. I think that's why you see a year where I'm not sure there's a ton of proposals on the table. Like some years we've had many playing rule proposals. This year we don't have as many. So I think we've got 5 playing rule proposals. You've got 5 bylaw proposals, and you've got 2 resolutions to vote on. I will, to Troy's point, I will definitely start with the fact that I want to say thank you to the special teams working group, because they have invested over the last 3 years a lot of time and effort in trying to get us to a place where we could have a kickoff play be reintroduced into our game that was kind of going away from our game, or going out of our game, I should say. And I think they did that very successfully. Last year we introduced it. We thought we knew how it would operate, but we left the touchback line at the 30 because we knew that there were teams that had some trepidation and wanted to see it and in operation, see if they liked it, see how to operate it, see how to make returns. If you will. That's why the return numbers ended up where they are. I think people did like them, and I think more importantly, the injury numbers were optimistic. Accordingly, we will recommend changes into that play. In plan proposal number 1, we propose to move the touchback to the 35, which creates about a 7-yard difference between the touchback line and what the average return was last year. We think that's a lot of motivation for people to kick the ball in play and get returns back into the game, which we like now that we kind of know how that play works. We'll also give them, propose giving the return team one more, what we would call a jester, which means somebody that's off the kickoff return line. So those 2 changes, both suggested by the special teams working group and both endorsed by us, kind of make up that proposal. In that, we did kind of catch ourselves on the fact that the overtime rule last year was written to say fourth quarter only. Not sure why that really is in there, fourth quarter only. So we proposed deleting that, but keeping the idea that you have to be behind. Then you can declare anytime you would like. So that's kind of final proposal number 1. Number 2 is overtime, which is proposed by a team, proposed by Philadelphia, which really just gives both teams a chance to have the ball. One byproduct from last year was the kickoff and where we had the drive start. All of a sudden, you had 75% of the games were won by the team that won the coin toss. And I think that's probably motivating Philadelphia in their proposal. We, as Troy mentioned, we proposed expanding replay assist, which is allowing certain penalties to be reviewed by the replay assistant and corrected in certain instances. We spent a lot of time on these. We watched a lot of plays. Troy talked about the working group that we relied upon to help us in that. So that kind of gets us to plan rule proposal number 3. Detroit has a plan rule proposal for illegal contact and defensive holding, that they not be automatic first downs. And Green Bay has the proposal on the push play when the players lined up in the quarterback position. There are 5 bylaw proposals. There are 3 resolutions, and that is kind of. I'll turn it back to Brian. If Brian wants to start the Q&A now, I'm ready to go.
Okay, at this time, if you want to use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen, looks like a couple of people have figured that out. So we would ask you to unmute yourself when we call your name and let us know to whom you're directing your question. First up, let's go to Mark Mask, Washington Post.
on the kickoff, or whoever wants to jump in on each of them. What's the hope and expectation of where the return rate will go if the change to the touchback spot is enacted? And then also, what does that mean for health and safety if the return rate changes that way? And then the other one is onside kicks. Why is the feeling that the change in alignment will get you where you want, and we didn't see 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 come back?
Chairman, you want to take that? And I'll
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, I'll go, Mark. I think that the special teams working group, I think, would say that they think the kickoff number will be between 60 and 70% kickoff return number, as opposed to 33%, I guess, is where we ended last year. So I think they think of going up substantially because of that yardage difference. So that's what they anticipate. Jeff can talk to health and safety, but we've modeled that also. Remember, obviously, you're going to have a lot more plays being brought back in the game, so you're going to have more injuries. The question is the types of injuries, and I'd probably let Jeff speak to that. But there will be a lot of plays being brought back into the game that have come out of the game because of all the touchbacks, and we will have fewer punts. So I'll let Jeff kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think Rich teed it up well. The goal when we modeled the new dynamic kickoff play was try to drive the injury rate to be more in line with a play from scrimmage or run or pass play. And that's exactly what happened. By decreasing the space and the speeds, we also decreased some of those high speed contacts that existed uniquely on the kickoff play. So we ended up with an injury rate very much like a play from scrimmage. So that's what the goal was. And as we take a look at changes to the play, if the rules pass and we do end up with more returns in that we would presume without any evidence to the contrary that the injury rate is going to again stay similar to what we see from a run or pass play. One interesting side note that Rich mentioned at the very end is the second highest injury rate play before we changed the kickoff was the punt play, and now it is the punt play. Especially lower extremity injuries, and sometimes significant lower extremity injuries. The fewer punts because the field position change as a result of the kickoff. The fewer punts in the game ended up taking out any number of injuries from that play. So as we add plays on the kickoff, that may end up with, again, like we had last year, a decrease in some number of injuries because of the fewer punts. So we put all that into the mix when we take a look at changing the kickoff play, Mark.
And I will also add, Mark, you alluded to the Denver. It was Coach John Elway proposal a few years back on the 4th and 17. It didn't have a lot of discussion. You really see when the committees start going back and forth, they're trying to keep the tradition. And I think with the kickoff, bringing back those 332, let's just say active plays, competitive plays back in the game, there was a sense of you earn everything. Every snap is important. And some consider, you heard this from time to time, gimmicky. This is not National Football League. So you got to earn that right you got to convert, play good D, play good offense. So it never came up this year when it was, is anybody thinking about this in Indy? It was not open. The clubs weren't open to proposing that 4th and 17, that model that we've seen over the previous years.
Let's go to Kaylin Kaler, ESPN.
Hey guys, this is for probably Rich or Troy. Regarding Green Bay's proposal about the tush push ban, I was looking at some of the data on the tush push, and it's only accounted for 0.2 per the ESPN stream media data, 0.29% of all total plays last season. So that's less than 1% of all plays. There's only 2 teams that have ran it more than 5 times last season, Buffalo and Philadelphia. So I guess I'm just curious, like for a play that is really not happening that frequently, why is there at least some support for it being banned?
Well, I think you got to ask, first of all, Green Bay and then the teams that end up supporting it. But I would say that the thing that nobody likes about this discussion that we're having and the question you just asked is the idea that the rule is directed towards two teams. Rules that come in, we've had many rules over the years that come in about some play or some tactic or something that was just never contemplated that all of a sudden is introduced and there's a rule put up to say maybe we shouldn't have that tactic or that play. So I don't think any of us like the fact that there's teams associated with this particular rule proposal, but I think you have to ask the teams that support it as to why.
Let's go to Vicky Jones.
Okay, so Jeff, this question is for Jeff. You spoke of the panel discussion that will be around flag football, professional flag, but specifically around flag football and women's flag football. This panel discussion, will we be able to listen to the full discussion here at the annual meeting?
That will be on Sunday, I believe, and I don't think media is in that session.
That's correct.
But Brian, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so certainly not live, but I don't know if there's an opportunity there. Let me take that back.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Ben Volin, Boston Globe.
Hey guys, two quick ones. Troy, wondering if you could just clarify what you said about Mike Vrabel. Is he back on the competition committee, or how is he helping you guys out? And Rich, how do you guys feel about where the onside kick is right now? I think it's been at like 5% recovery the last few years. Why are there no rule proposals to address maybe making the onside kick a little more equitable?
Rich, I can start. I'll answer the Mike's question first. Then Mike was working with us prior to his transition from Tennessee. Obviously, he was a competition committee member, but he was very instrumental as we were working through some of the special teams. And as he came back on board, we shouldn't be ignoring, because he was away. He was in Indy. Those head coaches that came to Indy early, while the competition committee was meeting, that was there early, I invited all who was there early. Mike happened to be there. And he's very instrumental, truly understands the game, the rule books, has a competition committee history. So his thoughts were invaluable to us. So he actually sat into in a few sessions where he was available. He's not a competition committee member, to answer that question, but his insight is invaluable.
Okay, let's go to Kevin Seifert, ESPN. Kevin Seifert, ESPN.
I'm here now. Thank you. On the issue of the replay assists and expansion, what's the argument for not allowing the replay assistants to put a flag on the ground if there was an obvious one that wasn't called?
Kevin, I'd say that when you looked at, we talked about this issue ad nauseum. I can't, in the group of the retired guys that have all been involved in the business, whether it was GM, coach, player, they're 100% against. I would say on the committee, Troy, am I wrong to say it was 100% against ever putting a flag on the field? The idea was that the game being officiated from there changes pretty much everything, and takes away the judgment that we give to officials on the field, and would require substantial rework of the rules and the way you wrote them. So I think everybody is kind of universal in saying we want the game officiated on the field, but we want replay assist to be able to step in when there is a clear miss of an objective element of a foul and fix it. Is that right, Troy? Is that how we?
Yes. And Kevin, I would just also add, in the era time of just legalized sports betting, the burden of you as a fan in the stadium watching the game, and we talk about allow the game to be played on the field, in a phantom foul, a flag is thrown, just imagine you yourself just thinking about where did that come from? And it just creates all kind of speculation. But to Rich's point, unanimous. The former players, the committee, even here internally in our officiating, it was just, we know there's going to be mistakes. There are going to be human errors. Let's try to fix some of those things that we can fix. But to put a flag on the field was a non-starter.
I accidentally cut off Ben Volan's second question. His second question was, why no proposals to make the onside kick more equitable?
A long talk about the onside kick. Number one, I would ask Ben what his definition of equitable is, because I would say that there are plenty of people that argue about, well, do we really want to give any advantage to the team that's losing to win the game? Do we want to just move that number from, call it 6%, 7%, or even 12% to 25% for recovery or getting the ball again? I would say there was no appetite for that. I would say most people wanted to see it move and move up to the 10 to 12%, which it's historically been in that range. And I think the idea was we just got to keep trying to walk our way to get to that percentage. So you see the special teams coaches recommended, and we put in the kickoff proposal that you're going to obviously, number one, be able to do it outside the fourth quarter, but don't treat that as a substantive. It's move up 1 yard instead of your foot being a yard back from the line. You'll actually be on the line. We did all the simulations the league did to show where that puts the players in relation to where they are now, which you would think is a yard closer to being able to recover it. And we do think that does give us an opportunity to move the number up. I think there's just a lot of people that don't want to move the number too far up as far as the recovery rate goes.
Go to Dave Burkett, Detroit Free Press.
There we go. I've got two questions. First for Jeff, really quick. You said 7 international games. I just want to make sure no 8th is coming, Mexico or somewhere else. And then Rich, on the Lions proposal, I don't know, don't want you to comment on their thinking necessarily, but I seem to remember this coming up in the past, the one about changing the playoff seating. Do you know the history of similar proposals and maybe why they didn't generate much interest in the past?
They have generated interest in the past. They have been talked about. I remember there's just like 2 different times I remember this discussion, and one had momentum, but there were just enough of the old school people that kind of looked at it and said, "Hey, we want the division championship to mean more." I remember Jerry Richardson's speech about it. I remember that discussion. I think maybe a year or 2 later we had another discussion about this, but it was a little different. It was the idea of reseeding after round 1, as opposed to taking away the division championship as an automatic home game. So I do believe it'll be an interesting discussion, but it has been discussed before, and but it's been a little while, so it will be a fresh discussion.
Richard, if I would add, Dave, we had a variation of it during COVID. Chairman, if you can just remember, we were just talking about it in the event that we didn't play, if the teams didn't play the maximum number of games, if there was a minimum number of games, would we go to a win percentage from a seeding standpoint? So during that COVID time was a time where there was a little bit of discussion in the event that there was an imbalance of number of games played.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy's absolutely right. Because the other thing was said is, in that case, you probably haven't played all your division games. And so it's hard to have a division champion not having played those games and then use that as a barometer for the playoffs. So that probably, to your point, Troy, we did talk about that.
And Dave, you heard me correctly. We announced 7 international games for this season.
Okay, next up, let's go to Eric Fisher, Front Office Sports.
Yes, good afternoon. Question for follow-up for Jeff on this women's panel. Wonder if you could just speak to what you're hoping to get out of this session, and perhaps, particularly in the case of Caitlin, what you guys are hoping to learn from her meteoric ascent through college and into the pros.
Well, discussion of women in sports, especially the popularity, the ratings, the investment in women's sports is not a new story over the past year, and the NFL is certainly interested in learning from the experience of some of the greatest athletes who have ever lived. Certainly, Serena Williams fits that description, and Caitlin Clark's engagement with college basketball in the WNBA, as well as Melody Hobson, who is a part owner of the Broncos and invests in sports, including women's sports, is something that the owners, the clubs, are interested in learning more about. And Troy can speak to this as well. Flag football is a high priority of ours. It's an opportunity for young women to participate in our game in the numbers they haven't before. Troy and his team have done a remarkable amount of work in getting flag football accepted at the high school level, starting to be the case at the college level. And as we look forward, there definitely seems to be an appetite and interest in investment in a professional flag league, and that would be for both men and women. And so it's a continuation, I guess, the way I would describe it, of the growth of women's sports and a role that football as a whole and the NFL can play in it. Troy, you're an expert in this space. If there's anything that I said incorrectly, please correct me.
No, you were dead on, Eric. This is really about the momentum over the last few years, and really, Caitlin has been on record stating that she wants to be an NFL owner. She's already there. Melanie's there. This is outside of participation. I think we don't get it. We don't have an opportunity to talk about it enough. Just the explosion of just women in sport, from coaching, the medical side, not just on participating of your young daughter playing. So I think the hope is, they're at the COO position. They're running marketing here at the National Football League. Head of our player engagement is a woman. Head of game ops is a woman. Head of football strategy is a woman. And this is happening across the globe. And we just want to continue that conversation amongst the membership.
Go to Jory, Yahoo Sports.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for your time. You guys mentioned with regard to the tush-push rule how it is often associated with one or two teams, and you think about that when you're considering proposal. Is that something you ask a club that submits a rule proposal for consideration, or put another way, what role do y'all play as a competition committee in assessing proposal legitimacy before it goes to the vote for ownership?
There's no lens that we look at, or no filter, I should say, for any club proposal. Any club's allowed to propose whatever they may want, and then we'll take a position. But we're only, individual votes by our clubs, and they have to, get 24 votes to pass. But there's no filter that's applied to any rule proposal by any club.
Next question, Randall Williams, Bloomberg.
Hey, Troy, question for you. Excuse me. I'm wondering, how are you viewing flag football in the Olympics as an opportunity to trampoline the sport's popularity? I know you've been working with the World Games in particular, but a lot of these conversations, as Roger mentioned during the Super Bowl, there's interest in turning this into a pro and league for both men and women's. For you all, do the Olympics serve as a deadline as far as when you want to have something started by, or is the work more free-flowing?
Well, Commissioner raised that during Super Bowl, that when you think about where we've started in flag on the youth side, and frankly, without the efforts of the Atlanta Falcons and Rich, what they've done in the state of Georgia, which is the model from youth, high school, college. He referenced the professional league. When we talk about LA 28, and then you got Brisbane and 32, it just makes sense. Now with the colleges, in 2 years, we should have a championship series at the collegiate level, Randall. Just a professional league. When we think about men and our aspirations, as you playing high school ball, man, I get to earn a scholarship and I get a chance to play professionally, then maybe represent my country. So we know that LA 28 is a milestone, but we're also looking at Brisbane. And the talk is, how do you truly become a global property? Today, we're not a global property. We're playing games across the globe, but when children, young men and women are playing and coaching and officiating in Asia, South Africa, and Ghana, you really become a global property. So I just think that the Olympics, it's one of those places where our brand, American football, you're truly on a global stage competing against the world. So as we would say, the flag football is real. That movement is real.
Let's go to Jarrett Bell, USA Today, with 1 or 2 or 3 questions.
Thanks for doing this. Just want to talk a little bit about replay assist. Just if Rich or Troy, can you summarize how you think this will look in the flow of the game? I know you guys have been very happy with how the game has flowed with replay assist to this point. Is there any concern that that could be disrupted to a negative degree? And as you look forward to what this proposal will do, how will that impact the flow of the game?
Well, Rich, I'll start turning. Yep. So Jared, excellent question. When last year, when we included those 3 areas of replay assist and roughing the passer, again, the only element of that was contact to the head and neck area. The unnecessary runner, we added that aspect of that runner being hit out of bounds. The intentional grounding when that quarterback's under pressure in the pocket. Then at an eligible downfield that came in 23, that 23 season, we learned that we can see these things with Sony technology and Hawkeye. We can see these things quickly with no latency. That those fouls now with roughing the passer being one of those things for membership to consider. That hit below the knee, we can see that. We can see it clearly. We can see it efficiently. If there's a flag on the field, we can assist the white hat in that. The unnecessary roughness, which is a big one. That was a really a big one that we were hoping that the membership consider that defenseless player. That's a big foul. Changes field position, change the momentum of the game. We see if there's contact to that head or neck area. And sometimes real time, the on-field official, that deep judge that went, he doesn't see or she doesn't see that. But we feel like we can do that in an efficient and an accurate manner, as well as with the face mask. That doesn't mean that contact of the hand to that face mask area, we see it. Is it a graze? Is it a tug? We can see if there was contact made to the face mask. So that's why the committee considered that for membership vote. And then lastly, the tripping, the illegal crackback block, the horse collar. We can see those elements fairly quickly from our learnings over the last 3 years are some of the reasons why the officials, we came to chairman and to the rest of the committee for consideration for membership in those particular areas. But we feel really good about our ability to get that efficiently and accurately on game day.
We have time for 2 more. Let's go to Hal in Palm Beach.
Actually, Jared stole my question. I was going to ask for any further details on instant replay. Rich, was there anything you want to add about the parameters or what they can do, what they can't?
I think the one thing I would say that gives all of us real comfort in the expansion of replay assist this year, and I think in years to come, is the cameras that are going to be in the stadiums. The technology level of every stadium will be and is being expanded dramatically over last year and into this year. Accordingly, you're going to have the ability to have a really good shot available to the replay assistant in every game, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, night game, whatever it may be. And that was always a limiting factor for us in how efficient this could be done. To Jared's point, how long was it going to take? I think with the camera technology, having the Hawkeye ability to pick the best shot, we can make these decisions very quickly and administer the decision on pick it up or leave it down very quickly. So I think we're all very comfortable that this is a good way to proceed. I do believe over time you will see more added in this bucket, but I think we're trying to just take our time and make sure we get it right.
Chairman, you should share, if you don't mind, share with the group. You always reminded us that crawl, walk, jog, but where we started in Indy, and frankly, where we started in Fort Lauderdale with the bucket, I think we had about 12 items in that replay assist, and we all kind of walked us back on it.
Well, we just kept going rule by rule to make sure that if you're going to put something in replay assist today, what you want to put into replay assist and put into that person is they should be able to look at the screen, and if there's an objective element that is wrong, they correct it. But they can't get into the forcible. In other words, was it a forcible blow to the head? Well, that's a subjective element where you're going to re-officiate the play. That is what we're fearful of. And that's what we don't necessarily want to get into. So that, to Troy's point, we're trying to make sure that as we expand replay assist, we do it in a way that's very consistent with how we started down this path, and don't try to, get ahead of ourselves too quickly.
Okay, last question, Jonathan Jones.
Excuse me. Thanks, Brian. One quick question on intentional grounding since it came up. I noticed some strike through language on or not facing an imminent loss of yardage. Just can you explain why that element of intentional grounding has been struck through after I think it was very recently added?
No, it's struck through only in replay assist. It's not struck through in the rule. And so the rule is still there. It's still, in other words, if there's no imminent threat of danger and you throw the ball away, that's not intentional grounding. But what the reason it was struck through in replay assist was there was this idea that we were going to let that be a part of the rule, and then we talked to the referees that were in the room that were helping us at the time, and they didn't like that because they know how subjective that is. And so the idea was in replay assist we were not going to leave that language in.
Okay, that'll conclude today's session. Really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing many of you next week. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so that was it, folks. It was short. The last one we had, I think it was a little over an hour. Now, I had a question that I didn't get picked to ask, and the question basically has to do with it's Section 4. It's amend Rule 8, Section 4, legal and illegal contact with eligible receivers. I should actually pull that up and put it here. One moment, please. I'll do that. Right here. Voila. Yeah. And I'll highlight it. It has to do with this legal contact within 5 yards, within the 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. A defensive player may chuck an eligible receiver in front of him. The defender is allowed to maintain continuous and unbroken contact within the 5 yard zone, so long as the receiver has not moved beyond a point that is even with the defender. Now, and all this, and then it goes on that then number 2 is Article 2, illegal contact within 5 yards of the 5 yard zone. The player received the snap, remains in the pocket with a ball. The defender may not make initial contact in the back of the receiver, nor may he contact after the receiver has moved beyond a point that is even with the receiver. If a defender contacts a receiver within the 5 yard zone, loses contact, and then contacts him again within the 5 yard zone, is a foul for illegal contact. And then illegal contact beyond 5 yard zone, beyond the 5 yard zone, if the player who receives the snap remains in the pocket area with the ball, a defender cannot initiate contact with the receiver who is attempting to evade him. A defender may use his hands or arms only to defend or protect himself against impending contact caused by a receiver. If a defender contacts a receiver within the 5 yard zone and maintains contact with him, he must release the receiver as they exit the 5 yard zone. Then Article 4 refers to incidental contact beyond the 5-yard zone. Beyond the 5-yard zone, incidental contact may exist between receiver and defender. But what is incidental contact? And the reason why I ask is because among NFL wide receivers, there is one in particular that is very good. Very, very good. Very good. I mean, I would say artistically very good at making a push-off look like incidental contact. And that's George Pickens. George Pickens has mastered the art of doing this. So to the point where, I believe it was against the Ravens, he initiated such contact the first time, got called for it, but then did the same thing the second time in the same game and didn't get called for it. And that was not lost on me. So I realized I've never seen a definition of what incidental contact really is and how to differentiate it from illegal contact or legal contact, the way receivers like George Pickens make something that's very deliberate and illegal look like it's accidental and incidental. See? Anyway, didn't get a chance to ask that question. Oh well. Other matters, I think you heard it. There's a lot of questions about the tush push. I'm not one. I mean, I can see what Mark over Green Bay is talking about. I think about it. It is an unfair advantage. It is quite effective. I'm surprised that more people haven't been injured because of it. But not every team does it. You know, it's the focus of those teams that choose to do it. However, because of the small number of teams that do it, it's not likely that in every single game you're going to have to deal with it. You know, it's a strategy, right? But if you start to say, "Oh, I'm going to outlaw that," basically because it's effective. Let's start there because it's really effective, and it hurts for defenders to deal with. Then you're probably going to start legislating out intellect. You know, it's like, hey, I figured this out. I can't do that. But on the other hand, to challenge what I just said, look, it is a rough approach to get down on all fours like you're playing 1940s or 1950s, early 1950s football, and literally submarine, and yet people piling on you and everything. That whole situation is just spells danger. So I don't know. Anyway, subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark NFL News by Zenny62.com. That ends the stream.